I want you to imagine a place that no longer exists. Maybe your old school, a family home that's been demolished, a street that's been completely rebuilt. You remember corridors, smells, fragments of conversations even, but the place itself is gone. Today, I'm not just talking about prompts and models. I'm talking about time, memory, and how I used AI to bring a lost place from my own life back to life again.
Hello, great to see you tuning into yet another Just Add Social podcast. Our resident social media expert is Clive Roach, and he is the host for this episode.
Thanks, Aria. The podcast topic today is how AI can bring lost places back to life. The Just Add Social podcast is very happy to participate in this 4th edition of the Podcasthon. For 1 week, thousands of podcasts all around the world will highlight a charity of their choice. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming my choice, which is ADHD Aware. Yes, this episode is part of a charitable event bringing together a large number of podcasters. Okay, first, in this podcast, we have a way to describe how advanced the topic is. We provide this number upfront in the podcast description and at the start of every podcast. This enables you to have a heads up as to the depth of detail so you can decide which podcast is best for you to learn from based on your personal view of your own social media savviness. And we can have Aria come and tell us what the social savvy score is today. So Aria, please let us know.
On the Savvy Social Scale 1 to 10, this is level 1.
Okay, thank you. So we are at level 1 today. Very nice choice, Aria. So that's entry-level understanding, basic concepts, minimal experience of social media is all that's needed to make good use of this podcast. Great. So now let's go into the introduction. So let's get started. There's a lot to talk about. So more than a decade ago, my former secondary school was demolished. The building disappeared, but the memories didn't. They lived on as small fragments, the classrooms, the corridors, those playground conversations and the games we used to play. And then one day a question hit me. Could AI bring it back to life? Not as a single static picture, but as an entire school day. Something living and breathing. That question turned into a project. I used AI to reconstruct my old school, which was Abbey Wood Comprehensive School in London. And along the way, I discovered a process that you can use to reconstruct places that no longer exist in your own life. By the end of this podcast episode, you'll have a practical step-by-step way to do one or more of these 3 things. Firstly, rebuild a place that's gone. Turn static memories into a timeline of experiences. And thirdly, to combine image, video, and sound tools to trigger real emotion and shared memory. And I'll keep challenging you with questions and experiments you can try as you listen along to this podcast. All right, let's go back in time together. Aria, maybe you can play a sound that sounds like we are indeed going back in time. You've got all those switches and knobs and tapes in that studio of yours. Could you play something for us to get us going?
Okay, let's see. How about this one? That's not the one. Oh, here it is.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll take that last one. I'll go for that one for now. Let's get started on chapter 1, which is starting with memory, not imagination. So, my journey started with a big loss, actually. Well, as I said, the physical school was gone. What I had left were fragments like those mental snapshots of classrooms, the footsteps in the corridors, the feel of those rainy mornings, and of course some pictures that I'd taken long after I left when I visited, and some video and pictures taken by some other people. So instead of just being nostalgic, I asked myself, if I gave AI enough of these fragments and bits of information, could it reconstruct the school? The first step wasn't opening a model, it was actually gathering evidence of the past. This actually took me several weeks to do. So I collected anything I could find about the Abbey Wood Comprehensive School. So old photos, old videos, anything that showed angles, textures, layouts and atmosphere. I had a lot of photos, but I needed way more, and I found lots in Facebook groups that had former school pupils, and I found something on YouTube as well. So this was my big first mindset shift. I wasn't just generating content, I was reconstructing a place that meant something to me and to other people. So it became very special. So think of this as building a memory data set for a lost place.
I like that, Clive. Nice. Maybe you can ask your first question now to the listeners?
Okay. Yes, good point, Aria. I like it. So right now, if you choose one lost place from your own life, what existing artifacts could you gather for it? Like photos, videos, street view screenshots. For example, I used Google Earth and Google Maps as well. Old yearbooks, maybe local archives. I ran through several photo albums and things like that. But using Google Maps and Google Earth really allowed me to zoom into the scene for location details. And even places where there were no roads, they actually had some nodes that had images that I could use. So here's the task. Here's the first task for you from this podcast. Pick one place that matters to you. And after this episode, do one or more of these 3 things. Collect whatever you can, say photos, videos, yearbooks, etc. Don't stress about the quality. I mean, I didn't. I mean, if you've used AI a lot, you know that AI can work with imperfect inputs as long as the resolution is adequate. What matters is the variety of the information you gather. As you gather, ask, what context does this image give me in terms of weather, time of day, clothing and mood? Indeed, that was my mindset. I wasn't just hoarding media, I was assembling the raw data of my memories. Okay, so now let's go into chapter 2, designing time now. Yeah, so this is where it all comes together. Designing time and not just the space itself. So once I had my memory data set, I realized something really important. Simply recreating the building wasn't enough. If I wanted the school to feel alive, I couldn't just rebuild the space. I had to rebuild the time.
How did you do that?
Good question, Aria. So, well, what I decided, this would not be a random montage of clips. It would follow a full school day. So I thought about firstly starting with a dark, rainy morning. So it was actually moonlight, and then that sunrise and the arrival of the pupils, a bright, energetic afternoon, and then a calm, reflective sunset. Then I mapped that timeline to real experiences as a storyboard. I really love making storyboards. So I remembered, for example, assembly, physical education lessons, lunch breaks, afternoon classes, and the slow fade of the end of the day. So that one decision, building a timeline, changed everything. It shifted the project from reconstruction to an experience. So before I touched any AI tool, and before you do so, I highly suggest you sketch a simple 4 to 6 step timeline for your place. So it could be, whatever you feel is scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5. I think I had about 5 scenes. And then I could put them in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then put all the images and the scripts, the prompts and the materials and the assets I had into those folders so that I could actually grab them as I started to make the content. I also had a folder. When I do AI videos, I also have a folder called rejected renders. So I stuffed things in there that didn't work out and I can look back at. Or in fact, I actually did an Instagram post about a rejected render that I did. So it was a nice kind of content that you can use for side projects and things like that. So anyway, so I thought of it as designing this emotional flow, right? So from quiet to busy to calm. So AI can reconstruct the visuals of a place, but you bring it to life through the timeline. Okay, so now chapter 3, which is creating a consistent world with AI. So once I designed the day, I moved into the image generation, which is the fun part. This to me is crucial, creating the images to the right resolution, size, quality, angle, camera positioning, all these kind of things, right? So to rebuild a school visually, I used AI tools like Nano Banana Pro, which is my favorite one, with some support from Kling 03. To generate those initial scenes. So these images really became what I call visual anchors, right? I felt like I just wasn't creating nice looking pictures. I was rebuilding something that people who actually went to Abbey Wood Comprehensive would recognize. That's a very different feel and purpose. Okay, chapter 4 now, from still images now to living moments. Is where it all comes together, right? So once I had those still images that felt true, I wanted movement, because a place really starts to feel alive when it moves. And I have to say, the feeling as I created each movement clip and seeing it happen, I was like, wow, I remember that. I use tools like Kling 2.6 Pro, which is my favorite one, inside Artlist. That's my go-to destination. I use that to turn my images into short video clips, usually 5 to 10 seconds long. And for certain scenes, I also used Kling 2.5 Turbo Pro, Dance 1.5 Pro, and also VEO 3.1, especially for scenes where, I needed some audio.
I like that. Banana nano name. Oops. I mean nano banana. That is an odd name, don't you think?
Good question, Aria. Well, Nano Banana is the nickname, if I remember it correctly, for the Google DeepMind AI image generation model that they have there. Actually, the name came from a product manager's decision in 2025. I remember doing projects and giving the nicknames, and then the nicknames stick. I did that a couple of times when I worked at Philips. In this particular case, the name combines 2 nicknames of one of the Google product managers. So a Nano, because the lady was short and liked computers, apparently, and Banana, because her nickname was a Nina. So then you have your Nano Banana. So great. Anyway, I digress. Back to the schedule again. So each clip was designed to capture one small believable moment. So for me, students walking through a corridor, kind of subtle environmental motion like trees swaying or the rain falling was an aspect that I really liked doing. And then the pupils rushed under one of the covers in the school playground, which actually did happen many times, of course. And the light shifting across a room or across the open space. And indeed, in one of the clips, I did work on this for about, I don't know, half an hour or so, getting the pupils to take their jackets off because the sun came out and it's starting to get hot. And of course, that's something I remember many times having to do in that space. So I made a deliberate choice not to cram too much into each clip. That restraint was crucial, I think, for realism. Yeah, and that's why there's a little bit more clips happen, but then each clip is better, right? So take one still image of your place and use your preferred video model to generate a 5 to 10 second clip. Limit yourself to one main action, like footsteps, a door opening, people entering a class or sitting in the class or whatever it is, in my case. And ask yourself after viewing it, does this feel like a real slice of time or just an AI show reel? So it really has to be authentic, I think, is the word I'm using for it. So that mindset I had that I use all the time was small, believable motions. That's kind of how I kind of viewed it. Okay, moving on now. So chapter 5, and this is about guiding the AI. And in this respect, I'm talking about protecting or also reducing the errors. So using the power of negative prompts. So as I built more clips, I realized how easily AI could break the illusion, because AI can do lots of strange things. How I word things is sometimes not exactly like how I want them. So if I wasn't careful, it would sneak in, for example, modern objects like laptops. Remember one of the images I did, I said they were looking down, working on something. And in the previous images, it used books. That's what I wanted because we never had PCs in those days or laptops. And then the next time we put laptops in, and I actually didn't realize, and then I created a video with these laptops in it. Nope, go back and redo that. Futuristic details, other things like mobiles. Distorted or uncanny faces was really hard. It was a big problem. I think it's probably my biggest problem because I had rooms full of pupils, So after I created a clip, I'd scan left to right, where's the distorted face? And if a whole group was walking towards the camera, sometimes they'd all look great and one of them would disappear behind one of the pupils and never appear again. Or in fact, change sex while they were passing somebody behind. And I was like, oh my gosh, didn't realize that. So many times I ran through the clips, thought they were okay, and then I had to do a more detailed check, and then another one, and another one. And then on the 5th time, I would see distorted face. Do it again, So there was a lot of checking. If you have a lot more people in there. Some of my later projects, I've reduced the number of people because in the end, it's a lot to do. So I've created scenarios where I don't have to have, 50 pupils. And as I say, the visual artifacts that never belong there, that's kind of thing. Or a bit of the building that the AI then assumes, oh, doesn't it go like this? And I thought, no. So I have to cut the movement, the panning of the camera before it reaches a point where it kind of imagines what the rest of the building's like. So I learned really how to use that negative prompting to really stop a lot of things like fish eyes and all this kind of thing. So when you're recreating the past for yourself, control is everything. So I learned to always include negative prompts, telling the model what I didn't want. And I think that's important. So in your next generation, add a dedicated negative section, such as no modern objects, no smartphones, no futuristic technology, neon lighting, whatever it is, but particularly distorted faces and glitchy artifacts. And after each run, you then have a scan, oh crikey, there's a modern car in there, there's contemporary clothing. I even had to scan the badge of my school, which was on the jackets, and put that into the tool and get it to put it onto all the jackets in view, where it kind of imagined and created a badge. So, I wanted to make it more authentic. So I treated that prompting as a creative direction. I wasn't just asking a model to imagine, I was directing it to stay faithful to a real remembered place in my memories. That's a summary of that. Okay, so now the next chapter, chapter 6, adding emotion through sound. So when I was compiling the clips, I already had in my head the sound I was going to use. I love creating sound, so even after I had the visuals and the motion, I knew something was missing and I couldn't wait to get the sound going. So the sound made the whole thing real to me. So to complete the experience, I created a custom soundtrack using Envato AI, and I didn't want a complicated, showy composition. I wanted emotion. And I thought about the 10cc I'm Not in Love track. I kind of really liked that. I wanted to recreate, a soft choir-like vocal, warm strings, occasional bass drum and bass guitar. And that's kind of what I did. And I aligned the music with the time of day transitions that I designed. So darker, moodier tones for the rainy morning, brighter, more energetic music for the busy lunchtime, and then a warmer, softer textures for the calm of the sunset. I also did a second soundtrack alternative with the popular music that was out at the time. So I have 2 different versions. So it really did shape how the visuals and the whole video felt, So for me, sound is what makes the reconstructed place feel real again. That's really important. Okay, chapter 7 now. Building at scale, small pieces, big impact. So, from the outside, the finished project might look huge and intimidating, but the way I built it was very incremental. So the final video was a result of 88 images and 86 video clips. As I said before, each one about 5 to 10 seconds long. I was completely shocked when I added up how many files were in this directory, because I had no idea it just had grown to that many. I was just working away. So no single clip carried the weight of the whole project. It was a combination of many small, consistent pieces that made it work. And here's a really practical lesson I learned the hard way. The AI doesn't always behave, right? So across the 86 clips, I absolutely ran into frames that turned out weird, put it that way. So I talked about the warped faces and a misshaped object or something. So instead of recreating the whole entire clip every time, particularly when it wasn't needed to recreate the whole thing, I used what I call creative editing, right? So I would cut around those bad frames, or zooming in, zooming out, pan left, right. So I didn't have to reconstruct the whole thing. So I rescued many clips by trimming them rather than just regenerating. And I persevered what worked and edited away what didn't. So you don't have to spend all your effort, money and time and points, whatever it is, how your tool works, regenerating, because you can use creative editing to get what you want. So my editing tool became a crucial part of the whole pipeline. It helped me to kind of overcome many of those issues that AI content gave me without losing the core of each moment. And that's exactly how my project ended up, larger than I first expected. I thought I'd need around 30 to 40 clips, but actually I finished with, as I said, more than 80. But it went really well in the end, of course. Okay, chapter 8, sharing with people who lived it. So one of the most rewarding parts of this whole journey came after I'd finished the first draft, at least. So I shared it in Facebook groups, and I wrote to certain people personally and asked them to look at a draft, former classmates, etc. So people had actually walked through those corridors and stood in those playgrounds with me. This really gave me the final bit of feedback or impetus really to finish it completely. So their reaction was kind of really immediate, honest, and quite emotional as well in some cases. It wasn't always positive memories. So some people said, I didn't actually, this really does bring back those bad memories. So still emotional, right? So people recognized the spaces. They remembered the specific moments from their life in that space. And they they started to share stories, some wonderful stories of one of my colleagues met his future wife in one of the buildings. And I said to him, in the draft, I said, look, the final one, I will make sure I scan past that building for you. So those kind of things are really nice. So AI didn't just let me reconstruct a place. It helped collective memory resurface. I think that was a way I looked at it. So for you, when you have your first version that you're bringing alive with AI, share it with a small group who knew that place. It could be family, old friends, neighbors, etc. And ask, what feels accurate to you? What feels off or wrong? What memories does this bring back? That feedback can guide your next creative decisions to finish off the draft, like in my case, just like reactions to my video are guiding future experiments as well. Chapter 9, so a couple of short chapters to finish. What this really means for creativity. So as I said, I started with a simple idea to recreate my old school. But as I went deeper, I realized that this was about something much bigger. AI in this context wasn't just a content factory. It became a way to do these three things. Firstly, reconstruct places that no longer exist, stimulate experiences from the past, and trigger memory and emotion in a really surprising, powerful way. So I think we're now entering into a phase where the past is not just a fixed archive of memories in our brains, It's something we can revisit, explore, and reinterpret and play on a big, huge 4K TV for everybody to see, which is really nice. Okay, so chapter 10 is about from one school to infinite possibilities. So let me recap what I actually did so you can see the concrete steps. So I used AI to rebuild a demolished school, to create a full day timeline, to generate consistent visual environments, to animate still scenes into living moments, as I say, with those Kling 2.5, Kling 2.6 Pro, add a custom soundtrack, and then I shared the finished video. So that was the steps that I did. Now, one extra nuance, I tried to use one main AI tool for the major timeline moments, especially where the faces and the key environments mattered for continuity. But for less critical scenes, where facial consistency wasn't as important, I allowed myself to use a mix of other tools. So that was important. I have my mainstay one, which is I personally use Artlist. And then I have a whole series of smaller ones for certain things that they're quite good at. Envato, Pickverse, and a few others I use. So I think that's important. There's also the practical side, because I pay a lot for the main tool and simply just can't use it for every render. So I make deliberate trade-offs about where consistency matters most. The result of all of this was more than I expected. A place that no longer exists felt very real again. It was a fantastic thing, and I watched it so many times by myself. I think the first week after I finished it, I watched it maybe 6 or 7 times a day. I had a spare moment, put it on, and I always saw something different in it. It was actually 7.5 minutes long, the full thing. Right, Aria, you know what happens now. So for the next chapter, where I'm going to give people the listeners a task, you can give me that key takeaway introduction, and then I'll get started with that.
Get ready for the key takeaway section, Clive. Here you go.
So now it's your turn. So this is chapter 11. This is my advice now for you to do something. So you can put your hand on this. So your project doesn't have to be about a school, of course. It could be a lost place, a childhood street, a family home that's been demolished or sold, a holiday destination that's changed beyond recognition and you want to bring it back. Any space that meant something to you, in other words, and now exists only in memories and photos. And of course, remember, you don't have to start big. You should start small. One image, one scene, one moment. Start from there. That's how I started, and everything grew from there, right? Because now, for the very first time, we have tools that everyday people can use that let us do something truly remarkable, and that is AI can bring back lost places back to life. Great. So that was the key takeaway for today. So if my story sparked ideas, treat it as an invitation, not just a case study. Go pick that one place. Start collecting what you can and begin your own reconstruction. So that wraps up this special episode as part of the Podcasthon. If you enjoyed it, feel free to visit www.podcasthon.org to discover many other charities through the voices of talents of amazing podcasters. And there are some great lists. It's a very big, long list. So have a look and find other podcasters. Thanks for listening.
Before we go, a quick reminder to please subscribe to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a goodbye to the next time I see you. And Aria in the studio.
See you all next time. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.